Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Open Lab sessions, The Strengths of Weak Signal, co-organized by LIID Future Lab and MJV Innovation as part of the UNESCO Future Literacies Summit in December 2020. So my name is Raphael Bido-Waddington. I'm the founder of LIID Future Lab. We are one of the exhibitors of the UNESCO Summit. We are a small foresight research platform in Paris. We use hybrid methods between classic foresight, but also more creative practices and creative formats and methods. We work with companies, with cities, with universities and cultural places in France and quite a few countries. So today we are joining forces with MJV to host a session about weak signal research, which is a kind of a classic foresight research methods, almost a basic foresight research method that is not generally so much discussed, but as part of the UNESCO Summit, we wanted to highlight the value and the relevancy of that foresight research method, because the forum, the summit, is really focusing on innovative methods and innovative practices that are currently bridging the classic art of foresight with this notion of futures literacy. So also to give you words about this concept, because in the last few years, UNESCO has been very dynamic to really emphasize this notion of future literacy, the ability to address the future, the ability to anticipate, to build anticipation system to reappropriate the future and promote this skill as something that should be distributed in the society as a development and empowerment force. So as part of this summit, coming back on weak signal is a way also of reminding that this practice that is not so much discussed in the foresight community can actually be extremely relevant from a Futures Literacy Summit. So this is to give a little bit the background. So today we are invited, I will be hosting the session with Fabricio Astua from MJV Innovation. And together we're inviting few companies that recently made a white paper on weak signal in collaboration with the Chief Innovation Directors Club of Paris. And those companies, so we have like BNP Paribas Risk Innovation, we have Thales Alenia, we have Malakoff Humanis. Some other companies contributed to your white paper, but today we will be just with the three structures. So now let me introduce you properly. From Thales Alenia and Malakoff Humanis, we have Cédric Balti and Siam Aroussi. Welcome to the two of you. Hello. And then we have a whole crew from BNP Paribas Risk Innovation. We have Daniel Vinandi, Pauline Bantegny, and Peter Pop, who have been the leaders of that joint initiative.
Hello.
So hello to the three of you. Welcome on this Open Lab session. Just to say a word also about this concept of Open Lab. An Open Lab is not just a panel, it's also a way of being a little bit in a research mode. We're speaking of weak signal. LIID Future Lab and MJV also have a practice of exploring weak signal research. So we will also share a little bit of our expertise, and we'll try to, to push a bit the question together and try to highlight some facets that maybe were not the first topic that, for instance, you addressed in your white paper. So just to also give some information about how the session will unfold. So we will start by giving few minutes, 3-4 minutes to each of the three structures, even also the four, because MJV is going to talk a little bit also. To have an overview of how you practice, what you do and how you practice weak signal research. Each of you have a responsibility in innovation and strategy and weak signal. So we're going to zoom on each of your practices. And in the second part, we will engage in more specific questions and I will ask you questions, and we'll engage in a more like in a conversation mode. In between the two rounds, we will take a couple of questions from the audience. Fabrizio will keep an eye on our Q&A. So I'm talking to the public now, and please feel comfortable asking questions. We'll have a session with questions in between our two rounds and also at the end. And it's okay if we go a little bit longer than expected. We were supposed to finish at 11:45, but we can go until I think we can go until noon with no problem. If there is some super interesting question, we are really happy to interact with the audience as well. Okay, so this is the introduction. Now, maybe, okay, let's start with maybe Fabrizio. Fabrizio, maybe you can say a bit, few words about MJV and also how you do weak signal research.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rafael. Hello to all our guests for MJV. It's really a pleasure to be part of this conversation. So thank you for the invitation, the possibility to be here today. So a little bit about ourselves. We are MJVs, so we are a global innovation and technology consultancy. And in a nutshell, basically, we help our clients to transform, especially in these times of uncertainty, right? Where we always come from a user-centered lens, and we rely on technology when that's applicable. And the funny part is, the interesting part is that we have been ourselves experiencing the importance of future literacy as fostering this futures mindset. You know, it has us to take our work and relevance to another level with our clients. So over the last few years, we have increasingly been incorporating foresight within our projects with very interesting results. So we have been using it to help our clients to better prepare for what's ahead. And for instance, we have worked with BNP Paribas, with Danielle, who is here, doing for instance, the future of wealth for the risk sector specifically. And I think the ability to guide innovation from more enriched, complex scenarios, future scenarios, it has enabled our clients to, better anticipate and make better decisions. So when we go to, very quickly going to weak signals, today our signal hunting, let's say, or signal research is guided by two directions. So first, we are looking for an understanding of what is interesting to look at from our practice as an innovation company, the industry that we are helping with, whether it's banking or fast-moving consumer goods, and the specific scope of the project or the problem at hand, so the client perspective. And that's also guided by as I said, by the specific demand of the project. And within MJV, we have a team that's dedicated now to collect these signs and analyze them, and work closely with our innovation teams that are working with our clients. So we have this team that does this sort of working with this, but we also have a wider qualitative crowdsourced weak signal hunting. So let's say we have a WhatsApp group and we have a forum where all of the people that are interested, so we try to open this to the whole company so that they can sort of, we put there the themes that we are, let's say we're working on the future of well-being, and then people can start looking at that and ask us, oh, is this a weak sign? Can we consider this? And then we try to educate our consultants and our community. We're talking about, more than 800 people in the company. Of course, not all of them are in the group, but we are trying to bring them as we can so that everybody can be, trained in this. So basically what we do is, just to wrap up, we always use, primary and secondary research. We rely on our network, personal networks and professional networks, whether it's other futurists, associations, clients, etc. And finally, when it's possible and applicable, we always try to translate this into scenarios to make them more actionable, because I think that's very important when you're talking about weak signals, so that you can see what it is that you can do with these signals in terms of a concrete result. So an example of this is, well, today with this COVID crisis, we have a research that's been going on since March, which we call the new normal under construction, which is available online, where we are constantly sort of gathering these weak signals and try to analyze them and give them back to the, to the public, to the community. Before I wrap up, for the questions, Rafael, I want to add to our public that you can use either the chat or the Q&A to put the questions that I'll be looking, and then we can sort them out. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Fabrizio. Now I'm going to give the microphone to Cedric from Thales Alenia, and maybe when I give you the microphone, I'm also asking you, what is the weak signal research? I know that I forgot to give some explanation in the end about what is weak signal research, and it's not so easy to clarify what is weak signal. So maybe Cedric, in your presentation, you can also say what is weak signal research for you.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. And very glad to be here at this conference. Very good question. Actually, that's one of the reasons why we participated to this group. I'll give you a few elements of context on my side. I'm working for Thales Alenia Space. It's a company working on space infrastructure. So basically, I think it's important when we speak about this weak signals. For us, it's mainly B2B, B2G businesses. It's not B2C. So the trends driven by the society are a step away from what we are looking at, but it's driving the decision makers. It's driving our customers' decision. So it's really relevant for us to follow the full chain and the cascading of potential weak signals. My job, I belong to the strategy department of Thales Alenia Space, and I'm in charge of strategic marketing, strategic business intelligence, strategic foresight and innovation. And there's a kind of logic in this cascade. With the first activities, we're kind of having a 360-degree foresight of what is happening around us. And then we need to try to identify the signals that can potentially drive some risk or opportunities for our company. In this sense, the question is, what is a weak signal? We do it quite spontaneously today. We have examples where we have been driving some actions related to some very, I would say, weak signals again. And the questioning is, should we structure it more? Should we make it a collective intelligence? And it was really fascinating to participate to this group with a lot of insights, thanks to the other contributors. And for us, when we are scanning the markets, scanning the trends, the question is, should we put in place some dedicated actions when we see something which is unusual, unexpected? Up to which extent should we put in place a process? Because we need to find what is relevant for our company in terms of effort and in terms of impact. And I think the outcomes of this paper has been very inspiring for the processes we should put in place in the future. So I hope it starts to answer to your question.
Yes. Thank you, Cedric. Yeah, we're touring around that concept of weak signal. Maybe I can give another insight on what are weak signal exactly. Sometimes we say weak signal, it's the future is already there. We just need to see it. It's like those weak signals that are indication of the future, but we need a lens to see them and understand why they are indication of the future. But I will give now the microphone to Pauline Bantegny, who has been coordinated this white paper, and maybe also in your answer you can give a little bit of an answer to what is weak signal for you and how at BNP you address this topic. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Rafael. So just to introduce myself, so I'm Pauline from BNP Paribas within risk functions. So I'm working in a risk innovation office. We are risk, one of the control function of the bank, and we are second line of defense. Meaning that we had to detect early warning signals if we want to protect and serve the bank. So it's a main topic for us. As an innovation team, we have to connect the dots to create value and to to put the things really valuable for the bank and for the risk function. We are managing an innovation portfolio with more than 400 ideas logged in. Managing this portfolio, we are able to detect trends, to detect topic of interest for the function and for people within risk. So we highlighted that weak signals, it's a real topic of interest for us because we have to be aware of how our counterparties are behaved. Because we have to know what's going on for them, for their sector of activities, for their capacity to repay, for example. So we have to put in place a lot of early warning system in order to be able to anticipate and not to react to an event. Saying that, we saw different initiatives within the group because we are at group level and we have team in different places all around the world. So we have team in Asia, we have team in America, we have team in different countries in Europe. So we saw a lot of initiative around weak signals. We saw a lot of work. And we said, okay, maybe it's time to take a breath, to put everything on the table and to share all the things we did. Maybe the definition of weak signals we have, because we can have different definition of what is weak signals, how we can leverage on it, how we can transform a weak signals into piece of information, and how to transform this piece of information in relevant information, and when we have to take action, assuming that kind of information. So we did that internally, and as we are really convinced of the power of collaborative work, we also launched a work group with the Chief Innovation Officer Club of Paris. So we called for candidates, and we discussed with Cédric from Thales Alenia Space, with Siam, who is here today as well from Malakoff. We discussed with people from PSA, from Faurecia, from Sanofi Pasteur, from UNESCO as well. And we put all our concerns, all of our interrogation on the table. We discussed, we shared our experiences, our practices, again, our interrogation around that topic. And we decided to write a white paper to put all this information in a paper to share with people, and to begin to ask questions to our peers, because it's really valuable to challenge your methodology, to challenge your way of working with other people. So we published this white paper yesterday. And in this white paper, you have a lot of testimony from all of our sector of activities. And you have also some recommendation of what makes sense for us in order to manage weak signals. So the idea of this white paper, it's really a first step for us, is to share our knowledge, is to share our discussion. And we would like to be challenged by everyone, by other sector of activities. And we would like to enhance our knowledge about that. And so that's where we are regarding weak signals.
Thank you, Pauline. Yeah, that's we can see from already those few words that weak signal comes with collaborative process. But now I'm going to give the microphone to Siam Aroussi from Malakoff Humanis. Let's hear how you address this question of weak signals, and maybe with your last intervention, we start to understand a bit better what are those weak signals.
Thank you, Raphael. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad for being here. I prepared some slides that I can share with you. Good. So I am head of prospective and innovation culture in Malakoff Humanis. I have a PhD in strategic and competitive intelligence, and I will start with some words about Malakoff Humanis. We are a non-profit paritarian social protection group. We are a market leader in health and disability insurance for companies, and we are 12,000 employees. So weak signals for us, it's part of our strategic and competitive intelligence activities. We have settled a monitoring system since 10 years ago, about 10 years ago. And this monitoring system helps us to identify and analyze weak signals. So there's some characteristics for this strategic and competitive intelligence system. First of all, it has a global approach. It means that we don't focus on just one or some topics, for example, monitoring competitors, regulations, trends, for example. We really scan our ecosystem to have a 360 view of our environment. And it does help to identify weak signals. We also have an added value approach for our monitoring system. It means that we don't just go for gathering and collecting information and capitalizing it in databases. Our aim and our goal is really to analyze this information to help decision making. And then we have also KPIs culture. It means that we are seeking for feedbacks from internal user of the monitoring system to have their feedbacks, to know what kind of decisions have been made or what kind of actions have been taken based on our analysis. And the last one, along the platform, because we use a digital platform for this monitoring system, it helps us to scan and analyze a huge amount of information. But along this digital platform, we also have human brains. We have internal expert network, which contribute to this monitoring system. It helps with the collecting information, sharing information, analyzing information, and it's really crucial for us because the analysis of weak signals is really based on this human brain. So we can see that the starting point of analyzing and detecting weak signals is really this monitoring system, this strategic intelligence system. These weak signals or analysis of these weak signals are also used for us for other activities like prospective and innovation activities.
Thank you, Siam.
You're welcome.
That's a clear presentation, and we see each of you have a different way of implementing a practice of searching for weak signal. Maybe just also to wrap up a bit this first tour of introduction. I can remind that weak signal, if we want to put some words on what it's elements of information. It can be new technologies, new product, new structures, new narrative, new concepts that are considered as either a solution or prefiguration of something that could unfold in the future. So the weak signal, we consider an information as a weak signal when it is when we can interpret it as a signal of something that will grow in the future, shifting from a weak signal to a strong signal that, for instance, a technology that is emerging, then we can imagine that in the future it will be a standard of society. So the weak signal, just also to rephrase a bit this notion, when we say the future is already there, it's really the principle that in the future, what we call a weak signal will become a strong signal and shape whether the use or the representation. Maybe I say a word about how we practice weak signal at LIID Future Lab, because we also have a focus. Siam, you mentioned this 360-degree scanning. At LIID, we also look a lot at the cultural sector as a place where it's not so much use and technological innovation, it's also representation, new concepts, new sensibilities that can be identified. And also weak signals, some of you already expressed that, and Fabricio said a word, weak signals are actually very useful to also design possible future scenarios. So it's not the regular foresight method scenario planning, but weak signals are also very important to kind of like prefigure, draft possible future scenario at a more strategic or marketing or more pragmatic level. So this is just to complete our first tour of discussion about those weak signal practices. Each of you, there is a research of information, there is interpretation, there is collaborative process, there is connection, immediate connection to the operation of the company. Each of you have been speaking about monitoring, about involving your teams in the process, bridging it to strategy or innovation. And so now let's go a little bit deeper in how this practice of weak signal is actually embedded in your companies. And now I'm going to start this second round. Oh, maybe like, do we have time? Yeah, it's 11. Maybe do we have one or two questions from the? Let me check just one. If we have a couple of questions in the chat. I see people asking if the white paper will be available. Yes, after the session, you will, all the attendee will receive a mail, and in that mail you will have the link to the white paper. It's planned. It's in the pipe. Very well. So now let's go for the second round and zoom a little bit, look a bit closer what the impact of that weak signal research in your structures. And I'm going to hand the microphone to Danielle Vinandi, who is the head of BNP Paribas Risk Innovation department. I saw also that recently you won an award. So like the Risk Innovation department of BNP Paribas is under the spotlight at the moment. I would like to, because risk innovation and weak signal is also something that relates to being alert, to being aware of like all the potential risk. It's a really intimate connection to your core business. And I would like to engage with you on like how the practice of weak signal has been helping you to tackle the COVID crisis. Like what was how do you pragmatically use this, what you installed in terms of weak signal research to address those current topics? Danielle, we hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So a weak signal is the first symptom of a possible change. And actually we are looking for weak signals everywhere all the time, as Pauline explained, anticipating the taking into account signals help us to anticipate risks and to avoid or mitigate them, and it's really important for us. So we have internal groups, you have this external group that we are talking about today, and for us it's actually, you have to take it into account when you are building a future-oriented and strategy and innovation strategy. This is a complex and dynamic paradigm. Perhaps the consequences of COVID-19 felt so sudden because we failed to notice the weak signals that presaged the wave of sickness flowing from one country to the other. But for us, weak signals are very important also for sustainability and for innovation, etc. So even if the recognition of weak signals is very subjective, it stimulates thought and creativity, and it helps to deal with vulnerabilities well in advance. It can be used as a competitive advantage also. So, for example, some weak signals that we are seeing those last days are, if I relate to sustainability, it's, for example, the rise of climate change anxiety, with the transport minister from Ireland, I think, warning against flight shaming people who travel from home. They are expecting 50,000 people to go back to Ireland or to travel in this time, in Christmas. We have also Prince Charles talking about climate refugees that might probably go to Northern Hemisphere. And when we see that we are expecting 1.5 billion of people to be migration refugees, what does it mean? And you have also, for example, that Denmark, who just passed a law that makes failing to act on climate change illegal. So it's what does it mean? What could happen from those signals? What are the threats and opportunities? For us, it's very important from a climate risk perspective, from all of the types of risks, because climate risk is not a single part of risk. It impacts all areas of risk. It impacts credit risk, liability risk, reputational risks, all kinds of risks. And I think there is a lot to explore and to create while taking into account the power of weak signals. And we are still, I would say, at the beginning of the adventure, but we are very enthusiastic, and we are ready for co-creation. We are ready for openness and to explore all the power of collective intelligence.
Yeah, I'm going to conclude on what you say with your last word. It's about, with the weak signal, it's a way of being ready. It feels like we are ahead of, like, people say that the future is accelerating at the moment, and it's true. We are, with the COVID crisis, we go for a radical acceleration of both the digital and the environmental transition. We are like really in the process of changing of regime. Probably it's like really the real beginning of the 21st century, I would say. And those weak signals, cultivating, being alert, as you just said, is a way of being ready. And in fact, it's the first condition to be resilient. It's to be able to feel comfortable in front of uncertainty. And for that reason, it's also like a challenge for foresight practices. I mean, we have nowadays, those practices of foresight where you take a year and a half to have 3-year scenarios. It's totally obsolete now. We need to be much more responsive and reactive. Maybe, Fabrizio, you want to say a word about those new methods of being more responsive, closer to practice?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Sorry, I was muted. So yeah, I'm gonna take what you said about uncertainty, because I think that's what we need to hang on to, because we're living exponential times, right? Exponentially changing times, and uncertainty in some way it's also growing in an exponential way. So we need to be able to answer that. So because the longer we wait, the steeper the curve will be. So, and you have to make faster decision-making with more uncertainty. So that's when the work that we are doing shows us a possibility. So mixing, designing for the future, mixing foresight practice with innovation and design, work. So because why? Because you're mixing an approach that considers the stakeholders' needs and the long-term systemic impact that whatever it is that you're designing, whether it's a service, a product, or a policy, will have on what you're doing. So understanding how this will operate beyond the existing ecosystems. So it's very important. So basically, it's something that we have to design for consequence, and this is very important to do. And so
that makes a very good bridge to the second part of this discussion, so that I think the time is flying very fast, and that being reacting and being responsive is also like, how can that foresight research and weak signal research can also support innovation, no? Because the way companies adapt is by innovating. And now it's like in the second part, we really want to also go closer and how from the weak signal research you can implement quickly and be efficient in your innovation process. And in that regard, I will give again the microphone to Cédric, who can tell us about how you bridge your weak signal to the innovation process.
Yeah, thank you, Raphael. I'll try to be quick. It's true that in our process, there is a direct link between the scanning of the trends and the action in terms of innovation. What we try to do is when listening to the weak signals to identify where could be some new opportunities, and then we have put in place a full innovation process where we have very short, quick exploratory actions in order to drive, I would say, potential opportunities or to mitigate risk. In terms of innovation, it's more driving opportunities. So we have, I would say, a direct connection because the team is small and we are interacting with a big ecosystem through, in particular, the Chief Innovation Club of Paris. So we have, on our side, developed first the innovation processes to make sure that the signals that we were perceiving were delivering opportunities for the companies. So that's the way we leverage the weak signals. So with I would say a strong innovation top-down process to capture opportunities.
Yeah, and it's in fact it's the fact that you're managing both foresight and innovation. It's really the key nowadays not to have the foresight in a separate department. It has to be like very woven with the practice of innovation. And so now I'm going to hand the microphone to Siam, because Siam, we saw in your presentation you have a much more elaborate process. You are much more equipped, and so maybe you can tell us more about how you bridge your weak signal research to the innovation process. We look forward to hear you.
Yeah. For us, we consider weak signals as something very important for the innovation activities, because we think that we cannot, the more we are aware of what is happening around us, and the more we are aware of the insights, the trends, the better we will innovate. We could innovate in relevant way. It means that we will target the good issues for the innovation activities, because we will have a midterm vision and not just a short-term vision. The short-term vision could be irrelevant for this kind of activities because the required time to develop the innovative solutions based on the short-time vision means that once they are operational, these solutions are operational, functional, they are no longer in line with the needs, the expectations of the users, because it changed very, very quickly. So we have every interest in integrating the weak signals analysis into the design of innovation activities and innovative solutions. But we have a digital platform, we have data viz, and we have different tools. But even if we have all these tools in any organization, I mean, if we have tools, artificial intelligence, data viz to help us to detect and to analyze weak signals, we still need the human contribution, the experts, non-expert contributors. But it assumes that these contributors, they have a common vision for the organization. They have a good knowledge of the group strategy, because the more they are aware of the strategy of the organization, the better they can contribute to the monitoring system and to the detection of the weak signals. So for this reason, it's important to help employees, collaborators, not only to be focused on what is happening inside the organization. We have to help them to have an open-minded and to be aware of what is happening outside the organization. For example, we established innovation acculturation program in our group, and we help our employees to be aware of what is the last trends, what is changes happening in our environment. And for example, yesterday we had an acculturation session about Jugad and frugal innovation with Naviraju as an expert, because each time we invite internal and external experts to shed light on specific topics and to debate with the collaborators. And today we consider that what is happening with the current economic and social crisis, we will have less and less resources, and so we consider that we should help our employees to be more agile, and helping them to learn how to use and manage resources in this context of COVID.
Thank you, Siam. Yeah, this HR dimension. The weak signal is actually it's a pedagogy on future literacy. So
Exactly.
it's, as you say, it's like this human factor is the condition for innovation. And the weak signal research happens to be like a very soft way, to engage the collaborators in the innovation process. It becomes like an acculturation process. I really like your witnessing on this topic. And now the time is flying, but I really want to engage in a final question with Peter Pop from BNP Paribas Risk Innovation as well. And we will go to the other side of the bridge between weak signal and innovation. We will look at also new advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, natural language processing that can support also the research of weak signal. Peter, we hear you.
Thank you, Raphael, and hello to the audience. Thank you for having me today. If you look back to the past, weak signals which are hard to detect and more difficult even to interpret correctly, this was something for scientists or specialists who had access to patents and scientific literature and the education to understand all that. But today, with the internet, there is a universe of data, maybe even information, which you can extract and which you can use for weak signals detection. But there's so much information out there that it needs technology to extract real useful information out of it. And natural language processing can help you a lot with this. For example, if you look at the area of monitoring certain topics, you spoke about it, Raphael, before. Things like, for example, is there any new technology coming around? Is there new regulation coming around? Look at, for example, the diesel scandal in Germany, which has speed up the transition to electric cars. You can use software like topic expansion, for example. You want to crawl the web for electric cars, but you don't know all the useful keywords. And I just have an example on my mobile phone here. Just if you enter electric cars, for example, for topic expansion, it creates a long list like automotive, hybrid, Tesla, battery, automakers, lithium ion. So basically, these tools help you to generate a full list of keywords which may be useful for your monitoring. Other things are, for example, there's a lot of software regarding sentiment analysis. If you crawl the web, if you have hundreds or thousands of articles, you may want to automatically classify them in positive or negative. If you read that Lufthansa has 700 airplanes and 600 are grounded, this is clearly negative. If on the other side you read that Amazon is delivering more and more, so this is positive, but it may not always be so easy. But there is a software regarding on sentiment analysis which can help you doing a kind of pre-processing and sorting of all the information that is out there. Another important thing is, for example, named entity recognition. So if you want to, for example, monitor or find information about a company, a smaller one, you may need to know, or you will want to know whether this company is mentioned in an article or not. There's things like GE or General Electric, both refer to the same company. You want to recognize when they are mentioned. And there's a nice example, for example, just a few last words. If you want to finance small and medium enterprises, freelancers, startups, professionals, which are usually underbanked, in particular in emerging countries where there's not a lot of information about them in the traditional credit bureaus. But you can crawl the web. And if you look at especially regional newspapers or RSS feeds or blogs, you might find weak signals like the MD has been found drunk in the car, he has been accused for tax evasion, but there may be something positive like they moved to new offices, they opened a new branch. So you may find information about those small companies in regional newspapers. And if you scan them properly, and if you have a broad enough set, then you may feel yourself comfortable and you may finance at least a small amount to these sort of companies, which means, you know, you serve the underbanked, which is important for us as a responsible bank. And I think, yeah, that's very important. So I think technology can help a lot in this area.
Yeah, and what from your what you say, it's also I'm going to bridge with what Daniel said at the beginning about, you know, the risk management and it's also in the example you gave. It's the weak signal research helps you to spot risk, but also to transform those risks into opportunities right. From the bank, but also opportunities for the citizen that could be underserved by not accessing certain service. As long as you have identified a specific need, by being the first one to address it, then you can also be like a pioneering and helping and supporting an inclusive innovation. So
yes, I think, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I think that's exactly right, Raphael. I think it's even more important to try to detect the opportunities in weak signals. Mm-hmm. And for example, if there is a transition to electric cars, try finding partnerships or way to support this with our financing. Try to support or go into new industries where the weak signals say they have a future, like genetics in the medical market, for example. If you are, for example, financing the traditional, I don't know, sonar equipment or so, but you may want to switch to the more, how do you say, sophisticated genetic-based equipment, which is the future. Yeah. So yes, I think it's even more important to detect the opportunities and change your business. Mm.
So thank you for your witness. We are past time already. It's 11:50. We are 5 minutes late, but I would like to thank you very much, all those witnesses. And now we can take a little bit of time to answer the questions because I think it's you know, we are in the Zoom mode, and it's important to also take advantage of those situations where we can engage in conversation with our audience. Fabrizio, what's going on in the Q&A? Do you see any?
Yeah, we have two very interesting questions here. First, the one is related more to the work research around, you know, weak signals research, which says basically, how did the current pandemic affected your work, research activities and practices? The sense that the person is saying is that during these disruptive times, we need to move more rapidly. Scenario methods are too slow as consumer behavior changes rapidly and drastically right now. So this is interesting for our guests to answer is, how has this specific context today accelerated the need to read the signs and the weak signals and react to them very quickly?
Siam, would you like to answer to this? Because also Malakoff Humanis, insurance company, so also your job is to tackle risk, and so maybe you can answer to that question.
Yeah, it has the current crisis. It has obviously it has impact our not our strategy, but it has impact. For example, I was talking about the acculturation, innovation acculturation sessions for our collaborators, for example. we have changed all the topics that we have planned at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of 2020, and we have changed. For example, we used to choose topics like health and the impact of the environment for sustainable development. For example, we choose the frugal innovation. We choose different items that we didn't think about it at the beginning of the year because it wasn't a real trend for us. And as an insurer, we had to develop new services for our insurers, for our companies, customer companies. So we had really changed a lot of things in operational ways, not in strategic ways, because our strategy is still, and we ask ourselves if we have to change our strategy, but our general, our ExCom, they decided that we have the good strategy, the good vision, but in operational ways, we changed a lot of things. And specifically services that we bring to our customer companies, and all the acculturation program.
Thank you.
If I may add a word, for example, from a risk management perspective, I think this is a great question, because what happens is if we focus in the credit granting process on financials, they may be a year old. They are from the pre-crisis. If the customers can ask for moratoria, they don't pay. So a credit agency doesn't know anything actual about these companies. But if we get real-time information from the web, for example, that this company is laying off people, or that the MD has given an interview to a local radio station saying that he is in trouble, then this is valuable information, and it's real-time information. And I think this is what we need in the current environment.
Yeah, that's what we were saying also about, like the classic foresight method that totally obsolete in that context of very rapid change. And so that's what the point of like focusing on weak signal is actually the key, I think. I mean, that was the point of this open lab session. Fabrizio, do we have another question?
Yes, we have one last question. I think it's a sort of a follow-up to what we've been discussing, which is basically if one of our guests thinks there is that if COVID-19 has accelerated a transformation of weak signals into actual trends. So have we seen elements that we're seeing more as weak signals, and then suddenly, because of the crisis, they have turned into trends? Are you any of you aware of such things?
I think the reason we're making a Zoom call is one.
Yeah.
I think we've transitioned from physical meetings to virtual meetings. Everybody was speaking about this for years, and now it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, rapid change. Danielle, would you like to say a word about that?
Yes, there is a lot of rapid change happen. Actually, there is, I think, the CEO of JP Morgan who said if in mid-April that if someone will tell me that we will be fully remote in 2 months' time, I will not accept it because it will be a lot of risk. And now we are almost fully remote, so it's there is a lot of changes that. That happened, and I think it's a lot of changes are going to happen again in the future. We have to be ready, and we have to adapt as we go, and we have to be open to try and test and learn new things.
Thank you, Danielle. Fabrizio, do we have another last question?
One last question, if we have the time. I think this is a very good one.
Yeah.
We were talking about, a good analysis of weak signals might give, solid understanding about possible risks. In addition to the tools that, for instance, Peter was mentioning, what kind of soft skills are required to capture the weak signals? This is very interesting, I think.
Yeah, maybe Cédric, would you like to share your point of view on that?
Yeah, the difficult question on my side. I think it's a lot about the openness, the capability also to analyze what's happening sometimes with a different way of looking at things. if you look at it in the same way you've been working in the past, you may just go past some weak signals. So this questions again, what is a weak signal? So I think a lot of strategic skills, openness and capability to analyze with different angles what is happening, and also make a correlation between things that are said or written and what you may perceive in other contexts. So correlation between several weak signals, I think, is something very important.
Yeah, like clusters of weak signals. But we could say also a word about creativity, because also like reading the weak signal require a little bit of imagination also to extrapolate what it could become in the future. So this part we haven't talked on this topic, but I think, I mean, at LIID Future Lab, we absolutely believe in this creative interpretation of weak signal as a key, as part of the talent of reading weak signal, to have a little bit of imagination, then backed with a solid research. But maybe Siam, a last word on this creative dimension. Is it something you talk about with your acculturation process?
Absolutely. We even have a program for all the collaborators to teach them creative innovation tools and methods. And it's really, really helped, because we're not obliged to be an expert of the topic that is concerned by the weak signals. And the fact that we have this curiosity and creativity and agility as well, it really helps in the analysis of the weak signals. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I...
Oh, go ahead, Pauline. Go ahead, Pauline.
Oh, just to add something really quickly, I think the collaboration is the key word here, because we need to be challenged in our point of view when we analyze such weak signals. We need to challenge ourselves with other point of view, with other people from other activities, from other sectors, in order to be the most relevant in this management.
Yeah, and maybe also collaborate with the artificial intelligence, as Peter said, like the artificial intelligence, we need to train them so that they can detect themselves weak signals. So it's a little bit of a, they're part of the collaborators in a way.
Yes, just a quick thought that I think it's important to tell is that the fact that looking for weak signals is also like, it's about training. So for those that are listening to us, once in the beginning, maybe you don't know if it's a weak signal, but once you're starting to see it, it's like riding a bike. You cannot unsee it, right? And this is very important for the practice of weak signals research. Once you're there, you're practiced enough, and you know that this is something that you can interpret as weak signals, then the rest will come easily.
And that's a very, very good point, Fabricio, because I think you need to take up these signals as early as possible. You may disregard them later on if you find out that it's not relevant, but saying that it's still weak, we have time to think about it, that's the wrong attitude. You need to take them up as early as possible.
Yeah, to
Fully
be the
agree.
first, to be the first one. So now it's noon. We're going to wrap up. It was great to share that session with all of you. Maybe we can say a word about the white paper. It will be distributed via email to all the attendees. Is there any announcement that you would like to make? If there's some public presentation of the white paper somewhere, or is there any announcement you would like to make as a closure?
We would like to be challenged about that white paper, so please read it and comment it, and send us any email, any comment, any remark, any additional truths. We are really we are waiting for that, and we would like to be better with your comments. So do not hesitate to do that.
So that could be another Open Lab session.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for the audience for your great question. It's always good to have a good contribution in terms of being a little bit challenged also by the audience. Thank you, Fabrizio. Thank you, Cédric. Thank you, Daniel, Siam, Pauline, Peter. It was a pleasure to share that moment with you. I hope to see you very soon.
Bye.
Thank you to everybody. Thanks for the session.
Bye.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.